You think you know your neighbors. You think you understand what it means to live in a welcoming community. But what if the smiles you see in daylight hide something much darker at night? This is the story of Maya, a young black woman who finally achieved her dream of buying her first home in a small, quiet town. She thought it was the beginning of a new life. Instead, she found herself trapped in a place where prejudice didn't shout. It whispered through rules, notes, and cold stares. What unfolded would force an entire town to confront the truth they wanted to bury. Stay with this story, because what Maya endured will make you question how much silence protects injustice, and whether you'd have the courage to face it if it happened to you. Maya had worked for years to get here. Long shifts at the hospital, saving every spare dollar, dreaming of the day she could walk into her own front door. When she finally bought a modest house in Willow Creek, a picturesque small town with tree-lined streets and tidy lawns, it felt like a victory not just for her, but for every sacrifice she'd made. At first glance, Willow Creek seemed like the perfect place to start fresh. Neighbors waved politely. The grocery store clerk greeted her with rehearsed cheer, and her street was quiet enough that she could hear the wind rustling the leaves at night. For a young woman who had grown up in the noise of the city, this calm was priceless. But underneath that calm, she felt a subtle tension. The first time she walked her dog, conversations paused as she passed. At the local cafe, she noticed glances that lingered too long, or whispers that quieted as she entered. Maya brushed it off as small-town curiosity. After all, she was new, and she was different. She told herself it was nothing. She painted her walls, planted flowers by the porch, and tried to blend in. But soon, small cracks appeared. One morning, she found a letter taped to her door. Please keep your property consistent with the neighborhood standards. No details, just a warning. Confused, she checked her yard. Nothing seemed out of place. Her grass was trimmed, her porch swept. Yet when she looked down the street, she saw wind chimes, colorful decorations, and even peeling paint on other homes. None of them had notes taped to their doors. Maya's excitement about her new life began to dim. Something was wrong here, something she couldn't quite name, but it was only the beginning. The notes continued. First about her porch light, supposedly too bright. Then about her recycling bin, which they claimed was left out too long. Each message grew sharper in tone until they began arriving in formal envelopes with the HOA's seal. Maya read the rules carefully. Nothing she did actually violated them, yet the warnings kept piling up. At work, exhaustion wore her down. The long hospital shifts were already demanding, but now, coming home meant facing a stack of letters designed to remind her she was unwelcome. Her co-workers in town remained polite but distant. Invitations to neighborhood barbecues never came. Then came the night her car tires were slashed. She found her vehicle sitting flat in the driveway, a note under the windshield wiper. "You don't belong here." Her chest tightened as she read it. This wasn't about lights or bins. This was about her. The next weeks blurred together in a haze of hostility. Kids stopped playing near her yard. Parents avoided her eyes. Packages she ordered arrived torn or opened. She filed complaints, but each time the HOA insisted they were enforcing rules equally. Yet when she walked past other homes, she saw infractions everywhere. Christmas lights still up in March, overgrown lawns, junk left out. None of them received letters. The weight pressed harder when Maya began receiving fines. Small amounts at first, then hundreds of dollars. Her savings dwindled as she tried to fight them. Friends from outside town urged her to move, but she refused. This was her home. She had earned it. Why should she leave? One evening, Maya discovered a camera lens glinting from a neighbor's upstairs window, pointed directly at her backyard. When she confronted them, they smirked and told her it was for neighborhood safety. The violation letters now included details so specific: the time she left a light on, the minute she left her garbage can at the curb, that she realized she was being watched constantly. The breaking point came when a formal letter arrived threatening legal action. If she didn't correct her repeated violations, the HOA could place a lien on her house, the first step toward taking it away. The home she had fought so hard to claim was now hanging by a thread, and then late one night, came the final blow, a handwritten note shoved under her door. It read, "Leave, or next time it won't just be your tires." Fear turned into resolve. Maya refused to be bullied out of her own home. She gathered every letter, every fine, every note, and began documenting everything. Photos of other houses with the same violations but no warnings. Screenshots of neighbors' social media posts making snide, racially charged remarks. Copies of the threatening notes. When she filed a formal complaint through her lawyer, the HOA dismissed it as misinterpretation. So Maya took it further. She called the local press. She shared her evidence online. And suddenly, the whispers that had haunted her became headlines. The night of the town hall meeting, the community gathered, expecting another quiet session. But when Maya stood at the microphone, her voice steady but burning with emotion, the room fell silent. She laid out the evidence one by one, the double standards, the fines, the photos, the threats. Faces flushed, heads dropped. Some looked away. Others muttered excuses. But the truth was undeniable. The HOA president, red-faced and trembling, tried to shout her down, but Maya held her ground. She spoke not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong. Her voice cut through the silence. This isn't about rules. This is about prejudice, and it's time everyone sees it for what it is. By the time she finished, the room was buzzing. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras flashed. The story was no longer just hers. It was out in the open, where no amount of silence could hide it again. The fallout was immediate. The HOA scrambled to defend itself, but under public pressure, their credibility collapsed. Several members resigned. The foreclosure threat vanished. Maya kept her home, but victory was bittersweet. Neighbors who once smiled at her now avoided her altogether. The damage was done. She had exposed the truth, but at a cost. The illusion of community was shattered, and yet Maya stood taller than ever. She had faced down an entire system designed to push her out, and she had not only survived, she had exposed it. Her story spread beyond Willow Creek, shared online as an example of how racism often hides behind polite smiles, legal language, and silent complicity. What Maya endured wasn't unique. Across the country, people face the same invisible battles, punished not for what they do, but for who they are. Most stay silent, too afraid of retaliation or too exhausted to fight. But Maya's courage proved something powerful, that silence only protects the oppressors. And speaking out, even when it's terrifying, can change everything. Her story leaves us with a haunting question. How many more people live under rules designed to exclude them? And when injustice shows up in our own neighborhoods, will we stay quiet? Or will we finally speak?